welcome to my beginning programming in C series. Now, this tutorial, I guess you could say, is going to be a little bit different than maybe some other ones you've seen online. Basically, it's a different approach to teaching programming. It's teaching programming by the example. So basically, in each episode there will be a problem, and I will solve that problem and show you how I have solved it. Now, there are usually many ways to solve a problem, so my way may not be the only way. That's just true. Hopefully, through this, you will be able to figure out how to program. Now, it's not perfect, and there will be a few flaws with that, and I'll explain what I can, or feel like I need to. But some of it should hopefully be self-explanatory enough that you just get it. And the truth is, you don't need to understand what you're programming to be able to do it. But for a few basics, you will need to know how to use a computer pretty well, be able to install some programs and stuff, and things like that. So, today, I am simply using Microsoft Visual Studio Express, the 2012 edition. Now, if you're going to install this, I'd suggest getting the latest version. You should be able to write programs just about exactly the same, and without any difference. But today I have the 2012. You can also use any other C++ compiler. Most everything, for at least this beginning series, will run on Windows, Linux, or Mac. So any of the compiler suites they have for that or anything, you can use those. NetBeans and Eclipse are the two I would use if you were using Linux. I don't know what you can use if you're using Mac. So, anyways, to get started, today we are going to do the most basic program ever in the history of programs. That is your beginning program to start out with always. It's called the Hello World program, and basically here's the problem. We want to be able to get something such as Hello World Hello World to be displayed on the screen. So, first we need to make a new project. Then we need to type the code that will do this. And lastly, we need to compile it, which means kind of turning what we have written down into a language that the computer can understand. Alright, so what we want to do first is we want to go File, New Project. You want to click and make sure of this, that you're on Visual C++. Now, since we're making a console application, you might think, why not just do this one? Because it will give you a few things that you don't really need. So, I'm actually going to choose Windows 32 Project. And you can name it whatever. Since I'm going to be trying to put stuff in the same solution for each tutorial, I'm going to basically name this something that is generalized for all of that. But you can name yours Hello World or whatever you're doing. And down here you can see you can add new solutions or whatever. I'm going to create a new solution. So beginning programming by example, I guess. I've already tried this a couple times and did it wrong, hence why I'm telling you how to do it now. No need to do that. Okay, now you want to click the next button. Don't click finish immediately. This is important. We want a console application console application without the precompiled header, and you can leave this on if you want. I'm not exactly sure what it's for. It's something I haven't learned and need to probably. Excuse me. But I'm just going to take it off for now. It doesn't matter while we're compiling. I think it matters more for release. Yes. And then I'll click finish. Now this should give you a basic template for programming, and it does. But it's also given me a few headers that should have been taken off because I said no precompiled headers. Anyways, these are kind of interesting. You can delete them if you want. I'm going to delete them just because they're going to kind of be a bit annoying. I'm going to completely delete them out of the program. Alright, and there you go. So basically, I need to get rid of all this because it's not how I want it. So there are many ways to actually write the main instruction, and I'm going to use one of the more common ones. We aren't going to take any arguments in this time. I'll explain those later. But basically, we have our main function here, and this is the entry point of the program that the operating system will immediately go into when the program is run. So, it uses some basic syntax. I'm not sure if I can really explain that. Basically, how the computer knows the compiler knows it's a function and not a variable. We'll get into all that stuff later. Is these parentheses right here where you can put stuff in that variables can be passed in through. It needs to be called main for your main function. That's how the compiler knows that it's the entry point. And returning an integer is also so that it knows it's the entry point, and it helps detect the computer detect errors and stuff. And down here you'll see when I actually run this that it will detect what will it detect? It will tell us our return value. So to start out, we need to print something to the screen. But how do we do that? Well, basically, you could go into a whole bunch of assembly code or really advanced C++ where you're dealing with specific numbers and everything. Thought about trying to do this for the next one, but for now, just know that there's a library that allows us to communicate directly with the allows us to communicate directly one second as I type this. Allows us to communicate directly with the console. So these files are called header files. Right here. And basically you include them to get code that does more complex things for you. You can create them yourself as well, actually, and it helps bind your program together. Basically, when your code goes through the compiler, there are a few stages that it has. It is compiled first, which means everything is kind of compiled down to its code. Then it's linked, meaning that things that maybe call other code that has already been compiled from libraries or such gets linked into your program and compiled into it. And then there was another stage, well, I'll just call it development. The finished product, where all that code is then released as an executable file, which is what you run on your computer. So now that we have this included, we should be able to run the program, the function printf, which stands for print formatted. So this will print a formatted string, which is 0 or null terminated, meaning that when it runs into a 0, that means it has no more characters. So we should just be able to put in something like hello world, and this should print to the console. If you don't put anything, nothing will happen. It's not allowed in the compiler because the function needs at least one argument, which means it needs at least one value in there. And then that's all that this is. Yeah, it looks... Nah, I can't say that. I don't know enough about the language. That's like expert stuff that I was just about to try to explain. No, I don't know it. Um, and then if we run this, you'll see that it shouldn't actually run, because I missed something. If it does run, that'll be interesting. Okay, so it did run. I guess it just has a default return value of 0. What I'm actually going to do, the common one to return is 0, but just so you can see an example, I'm going to return 1. And you can see here the program, this one, programmed by example, has exited with code 0. If I say tell it to return 1, then it exits with code 1, which is really useful. All this stuff up here is stuff that doesn't matter too much, I don't think. Let's hope not. Anyways, it's dynamic links that the program has to do instead of static links, which are compiled into the executable. Now, if you notice, it just kind of the screen kind of came up and went away. I want to put a delay in, and I'm not sure. Okay, so there is one. But it's in a different library. In the std.lib. So, as you can see, we've included another chunk of code now. And we know this because we've included another header. And I don't have any other files that have this stuff in it. Now, these are all standard libraries that come with C++. So, they just kind of come with it, and the compiler knows how to link them. If it didn't, we'd have to do special stuff, but we'll have programs that do that later. So anyways, the STD in these, I thought I would mention, stands for standard. So basically we have the standard I/O, or standard input-output, and the standard library linked into our program so we can use those functions from them. And now I should have a delay function, but I don't. Alright, well, I couldn't find much of anything. So there are two ways I can do this. Either wait for input from the user, or actually go and run it in command line. Yeah, I guess you can see this. So, I'm going to need to change the directory real quick. Let me just see if I can find where everything is. Alright, so first we'll go here, then we'd want to go into our projects, into beginning programming by example, and I think it's here that it will compile out, yeah. So then we have this. I'm going to go ahead and go into the properties, and grab this right here, and I'm going to change the directory to there so that I can go ahead and grab it. Okay, so basically if I type in now this name, it should run. Because it's got spaces, it needs to have the quotes around it. And as we can see, it prints out hello world, so it does do what we think it needed to do. Next time, we will look into an actual better way to do this, so that when we run the program, we can see the output, and it won't immediately close like that. So, until then, thanks for watching. So first, make a new project. In my case, we just go File, New Project. And as you can see here, we have a couple options. I'm choosing console application today because we don't need anything fancy like this window back here, or any other type of window. We just want to get the text visible. So we will call this. We will call this section of solutions, the to beginning programming. Now, and then I'll put a project in this solution. I know you'll understand it later. Really, you can call it whatever you want. You could call it Hello World or whatever, and that should work out for you. Okay, so here we have the main part. One problem I'm beginning to notice is I made a Visual Basic. Make sure you don't do that. We are programming in C. So, new project, go to your Visual C++ and choose a Windows 32 console application. This is what you want. And let me just name it something slightly different. And then that should work. Oh, that's right, we've got to do all this stuff. Now, we aren't going to be using any of this special stuff. You might leave this one on, it doesn't do much of anything. But I'll turn it both off for this time. The precompiled header, it gives you some stuff that's useful in some cases, but I rarely ever use it. And then we choose the console application. You can choose any of them, but this just gives you a nice, well, except for DLL and static library, that has to do with how it's compiled. We'll get into those later. Windows applications are structured to better be able to use the Windows Application Programming Interface, or API, which would create windows, such as anything you see in a normal day. But we just want a console application. So finish. And if you're programming in any other C++, you wouldn't have a Windows application because you wouldn't be using the Windows API, because you'd be on Linux or Mac. And you would have a different application programming interface for those two operating systems. Console applications are general. Now, a couple things I see here. I don't need... This might cause problems, just because I don't need these. It gave me a precompiled header. One second, let's do this again. Visual C++. I'm going to choose Windows 32 application this time, because I think just choosing this gave us well, no, maybe it didn't. Yeah, it did. So choose Windows 32 project. I'm just going to start from here. So, make a note that I'm going to start from the home page if possible.